Let's take up the idea that science has refuted religion. So I'm going to state some of the premises of religion, and you give me the scientific refutation. God created the world.
No evidence for that.
And you consider the fact that there's no evidence that God created the world to be a refutation.
The null hypothesis states that your hypothesis is not true until proven otherwise, and I don't accept the arguments for God's existence. Therefore, the null hypothesis is affirmed. We know of no God. We have to assume that there isn't.
All right. Do human beings have free will?
I would say no. Based on the evidence so far.
All right. So now I want to go back to a statement that your partner Sean Carroll said earlier, which is he said there's no purpose in the universe, but we can create purpose. How can we create purpose if we don't have free will?
Well, the process of creating purpose is itself a deterministic process, part of the overall causal net of the universe. Within that, evolution has created the propensity for us to have goals, to work toward those goals, and that's what gives us the feeling of purpose. The emotion or feeling of purpose gives us meaning, and that's all part of the whole causal determined universe.
And is it equally true that all your arguments here today, as well as Sean's, are giving you the feeling of making rational arguments, but these are actually not really rational arguments?
I have no choice but to believe that.
And I suppose I have no choice but to disagree.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. That's the problem.
Now, Sean Carroll said earlier that if there was a possibility of God, we would consider and examine that scientifically. We would be open to considering what such evidence might be.
Yes.
Now, since Christians, and I think this is probably true of most religions, have never held God to be a material being, you would have to be looking for evidence for immaterial things. Here's my question. Do you believe in immaterial things?
Well, I don't think that science can, by definition, measure something that's not measurable. So something that's supernatural or outside of the natural world, if it's outside of space and time, we can't get at it. So at some point, your God has to dip into the space-time continuum and stir the particles, and then Sean should be able to measure it and say whether it's happening or not.
Aren't there innumerable immaterial things in this world that we can't measure?
You mean like truth or beauty or...
How about a thought?
Love?
Can you see a
evidence?
thought?
A thought, yes. Well, I think thought is a product of what neurons do when
I didn't
they
ask
fire.
you what it's a product of. I asked you if it can be measured.
Yes, it's measurable by the fact that we can do a single electrode measurement of a neuron that fires when you report something.
You're talking about a physical correlate of a thought. You're not talking about thoughts themselves, are you?
Yes, well, we do make the assumption that thoughts, the correlation is connected because of the consistency across different modalities of measuring the brain activity results in the process of something we call thought. Let's be careful not to reify thought into something that actually exists. It's just neurons firing and we're calling it something.
And that's an assumption, like you said. It's not a conclusion, it's an assumption. Let me give you a further assumption. You said that if we damage parts of the brain,
yes,
our thoughts disappear, and therefore it shows that the brain is the cause of thoughts.
That's right.
All right. Now, if I were to take out my iPod and I were to smash it, no music would come out of it. But would that prove that the sound waves are caused by the physical mechanism?
Well, there'd be no more sound waves from that
That's
device.
right. But would that prove that the sound waves don't exist? Isn't it possible? I'm offering a rival hypothesis.
No, I think it would.
Let me offer a rival hypothesis that the iPod, just like the hardware of a computer, is the physical chassis or substrate required for the sound waves to manifest themselves, but the sound waves are not identical with the iPod.